Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm your host for the day, Kevin Kietzman, and we've got a nice broadcast lined up for you, including 30 minutes from now, your next chance to win tickets to Country Stampede, a 4-pack of tickets. We'll be giving those away at 10:35. We'll also discuss what's wrong with the World Cup in Kansas City. Why do they just keep lying to us about this event? Patrick Mahomes' mom is making news. We'll talk with Mark Van Parlay at the end in the final segment today about her making news over comments she's making on a podcast. And Jay Powell of the Fed will not budge. And that's where we start today. It's unbelievable how many people work against Donald Trump and are trying to keep him from doing what he can as president to make America great again. So many of these things are personal. And it's insane. So Donald Trump is just concluded in the last few minutes a news conference at NATO in the Netherlands where if the world has a stage, this is it. NATO would absolutely be the world stage, as if you're not a member of NATO, you are watching all of this very carefully. The head of NATO literally in the media referred to Donald Trump as daddy. He called him daddy. Trump fielded a question in the news conference today from a foreign reporter, that says, do you see the NATO countries as your little children that you have to keep in line and keep in order because the head of NATO is referred to you as daddy? And it was affectionate, it was teasing, it was playful, it was fun. It was also accurate when he called Donald Trump daddy. And Trump says, no, I don't see them as that. The follow-up question was, do you think they can ever defend themselves without your help? He said, I'd like to think they'd get to a point where they would do that, but they have not taken this very seriously. They don't spend enough money and efforts on defending themselves against threats like Russia, if indeed you believe Russia is marching through Ukraine to get to Europe. They don't spend enough money to help themselves because they've been relying on us since World War II. And he said that's coming to an end. Trump really dramatically increased NATO countries' funding and eased what America will have to do. They're going from 2% of their GDP to 5%. That is a massive raise that will be implemented. The fake news asking him about. They're asking him about the intel that, the early bomb damage assessment that took place in Iran. And Trump unloaded, saying he got a call from Missouri. He didn't say who. He said he got a call from Missouri yesterday about pilots at Whiteman Air Force Base being devastated by the news reports that they're hearing. The person that he spoke with said, sir, the mission was perfect. It hit every target strategically. Trump saying they hit every single target within 9 inches. When you look at those satellite shots and they show before and after, it doesn't look devastating. And the reason it doesn't look devastating is these are targeted hits. They could have hit the site, Fordo, let's say, with 10 missiles and blown the whole thing to pieces, and it would look like one big crater. They didn't even touch the building. You can still see the white roof. They left it alone. The building is no issue. They didn't bomb that. They bombed down into the hole where the uranium was. They knew exactly where to go. They didn't blow up more missiles than they needed to. They're very expensive. They sent 14 of them in there, and each one hit the target within 9 inches. And he is all over the fake news. Now, at first, I was thinking, they should just calm down on this. Nobody believes the fake news. Don't draw attention to this leak because somebody leaked something from the Department of Defense. And now the FBI is looking into it. The bigger story here is going to be searching for the leak. The bigger story is that somebody did leak something to the fake media. That's the bigger story. But the more Trump talks about it, the worse it makes it all look. Now, maybe they know who it is. Maybe they're targeting. Maybe they're going to get this person. But usually we don't find out who the leakers are until years later on things like this. Drawing attention to it, I thought, was a terrible idea until he convincingly, I thought, because, you never know with Trump. Sometimes it's just bravado. But this was the very serious, sort of somber President Trump in this news conference. And he said, these pilots were devastated. And he looked at the American reporters and said, you should all be doing stories on what kind of heroes they are. He said, our men and women pilots were in grave danger and may not have come back to their spouses and their children. And this is what you're wanting to report is something that looks damaging to the Trump administration? Do you even think about the people that put their life on the line to keep you protected every day when you're just trying to drum up stories to hurt me and the collateral damage that does to other Americans and what they do for a living? Does it even occur to any of you people? He is literally in front of the world's media just grilling these American reporters for being like, look, the rest of the NATO reporters didn't care about this report. They don't care about any of this. It simply is leftist politics. If we can do something to try to damage Trump because you know what his approval ratings are going to do? When you pull off a mission like this, the president's approval ratings go up. They know that. They're trying to combat that. The fact that these media outlets put politics above everything is sickening. It's absolutely sickening. That's your mission every single day. And we know this. We've heard reports of local media this way. We know what the Kansas City Stars game is. They had a leak from a staffer that they've told them every day to find something about Donald Trump's tariffs that are affecting the Kansas City area. And they're implying when you find something and report on it, it needs to be negative against Donald Trump's policies. It doesn't have to be stated within the walls of the Kansas City Star that that's what they're going to do. They're going to find a tariff story every single day about some small business that's hurt or this person or that person. They're going to single things out and they're going to try to damage him. And that is their order of business. I got kind of sick hearing it. I believe Trump. I think he's a truth teller. Does he exaggerate? Yes. Was he exaggerating today? There were times when you heard that. But he got really somber when he was talking about the call that he got from Missouri and how these pilots thought they were going to come home and see all this, reaction in the media and celebration. And part of this is on the military. They could put these people out there. They could prop them up as heroes. They could identify them. They could let them do interviews. They could do all kinds of things. But that's not the way the military works. And I understand why that's not how it works. But for the media to do this, if it really is, I think so too. I think if I spent 36 and a half hours in a plane and did that and hit all my targets within 9 inches and came back and they were complaining that it didn't do enough devastation and there's this intel report leaking and this is Trump, I think I'd be hurt by that too. Now, these are strong men and women. They know exactly what they're doing. Our military have wonderful personnel, great people that are filled with pride, and I'm sure they know that a job well done. And they feel good enough about themselves and the job that they do to find comfort in the fact that they executed their mission flawlessly. And they should. And I'm sure in-house at Whiteman, they celebrated it greatly. I'm sure there were a whole bunch of high fives and hand slapping and back slapping and compliments and all those things. But this was scathing by Trump to get on these American reporters in the Netherlands in front of all the media of the world and basically say, look how low you people are. Look at what you've done. What kind of early bomb damage assessment matters? For now, the conflict is over, and we know why it ended. It ended because the Americans went in and dropped 14 bunker busters and 30 or 40 missiles from a submarine, and they hit strategic targets all over Iran, and Iran went, okay, that's enough. The first 10 days of Israel was bad enough. We had a whole bunch of our top brass, our military command killed, installations taken out, rocket launchers destroyed, airplanes blown up, and now the Americans are doing this. Our enrichment sites are done. Whether they got the uranium out or not doesn't really matter at this point. They have nowhere to assemble anything or anything to do with it. Trump indicated in his news conference today that he didn't think they did get all that stuff out. He said it's very difficult to move that stuff out. And he sort of suggested if they took it out, we would have seen it. We would have known it. He's of the belief that that stuff's in there, it's buried, it's done, it's over. And I think we should be taking a victory lap. And I think Trump's great when he does things like that. But bringing back patriotism like we knew it when we were younger, or like the greatest generation did after World War II, bringing some of these things back in 2025 is incredibly difficult. We have illegal aliens and immigrants, two different things in this country from other lands that want to be here but they want to identify as from somewhere else. They want to be a citizen here, but they want to be dual citizens. They want to identify from where they came from. They want to fly those flags. They want to import socialism. They want all kinds of things that Americans, traditional Americans, Americans that have been here for generations, don't want. And that's male and female, black and white, any religion, you name it. America first is what it says. And political parties come together when there are successes militarily. And the fact that we have media and billions and billions and billions of dollars behind all these people and what they're pushing in this country to try to tear down when we do something well is maybe the most disgusting thing yet. We got men and women who have died for people's rights to burn the flag, to say what they want, to stomp on it, to protest, to do whatever. And we respect that. But man, when you are actively working against your country because you don't like the political party that's in charge, that you don't want them to do well, that you literally for the next 4 years want bad things for America and American citizens in hopes that it will help you win the next election, man, you're low. I don't know many conservatives that were like that during the Biden administration. We didn't like having Joe Biden in there. We didn't like the auto pen. We didn't like the people pushing all those things. But I don't know one person in my circle of people that believe what I believe that woke up on any one day and wished for bad things to happen so the Democrats would lose. It's a sick and twisted way of thinking, and he outed it today. And I'll just reinforce what we've been saying here the past few days. The men and women of Whiteman Air Force Base are the best among us. Job well done. 913-408-7957. That's 408-7957. If you'd like to join the conversation, I'd love to hear from you. Right now, this is Uncanceled.
Kevin Kietzman, Uncanceled. 10 to 11 a.m. on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Okay, we're back, and we're proud to bring you stories that the fake news media will not. If you're Trump-hating media, you just don't report these stories, so they don't get a lot of oxygen because and I'm guilty of this because I just did it. I don't like doing it. I don't like responding to the stuff that they push out there, but Trump made such a big deal about it, and it was so local, having to do with the pilots at Whiteman, that I thought it was important to do that today. I'd much rather bring to you the information that doesn't get publicized anywhere because it's, generally speaking, very good information and reflects well on America, conservative Trump. And the latest, while he's over there and has brokered a peace deal between Israel and Iran, is Bernie Moreno, a senator from Ohio, who has introduced a resolution in the Senate today urging the Norwegian Nobel Committee to consider Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025. Now, that's quite the contrast to what the reporting is from many media outlets in this country. But as part of this resolution, it's not just pro-Trump. He states it's basically sending to the Peace Prize. It's almost like saying, we know you're not going to give it to him, so we're going to get our shots in here with you people. And the forthcoming resolution credits Trump with bringing a swift end to this conflict without deploying American troops. According to the draft, which is obtained by Breitbart News reporting today, the resolution draws a sharp contrast between Trump's foreign policy and that of Barack Obama's, who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2009, just months into his presidency. The resolution notes that Obama, despite receiving the Peace Prize for his supposed efforts to foster global diplomacy, went on to authorize 543 drone strikes that killed an estimated 3,797 people, including over 300 civilians. It also cites Obama's admitted failure to the plan and to plan for the aftermath of his regime change operation in Libya, which led to the deadly Benghazi attack that killed 4 Americans. So Moreno is sending this off to the Peace Prize people, saying, Trump doesn't do the stuff that Obama did, and it's just one thing after another that you should never have given this prize to Obama prematurely. Might I add, this was just months after he was elected president. The world was so excited that America had it. It was like Pope Leo. The world's like, whoa, there's an American Pope. Well, the whole world was like, whoa, we've got a minority president in the United States. We must bow to his feet and kiss his feet and give him the Peace Prize before he's even been president. So Bernie Moreno is pointing that out, and I like that. I like the fact that they're doing that. This story is buried, and part of the reason it's buried was closed-door hearings in D.C. But Congress is having closed-door hearings about the cognitive functions of Joe Biden while he was president. This is the auto pen investigation. And this sounds like a really big story to me. A really big story. A former aide to President Joe Biden testified behind closed doors Tuesday for more than 4 hours as part of the House Oversight Committee's investigation into Biden's mental fitness to serve and the use of an auto pen at the White House. Confirming, this woman, she was authorized to use the automatic signature device while pushing back on concerns about alleged manipulation or malfeasance. Neera Tanden, you've probably heard this name, who served as director Tanden, you've probably heard House Domestic Policy Council, explained in her opening remarks Tuesday, this is just getting it right out of the way. I'll give her credit. She put it in her opening remarks, that she was given authority to wield the auto pen. She said she was responsible for handling the flow of documents to and from the president and was authorized to direct auto pen use from October 21 to May of 23 when she was serving as staff secretary and advisor to the president. Let me repeat that. The staff secretary was also an advisor to the president and had full authority for 2 years to use the auto pen as she saw fit because she was responsible for handling the flow of documents. This was testified yesterday in a closed committee, and yes, this story is leaked because these are not public comments yet, and these aren't on TV. Washington Examiner reported this today, and I think that's a really big story. I mean, we knew somebody was doing it. Joe Biden wasn't walking in there and hit the green button on the auto pen to sign the tens of thousands of documents or whatever they did. A lot of this is going to have to do with the pardons. And a lot of people are asking, okay, he pardoned all these people. Are these pardons legal? Does Joe Biden actually know that he pardoned all these people at the end? Remember, there was one pardon that he signed by hand in real ink, and that was his son's pardon. So there's no going back on that one. Joe Biden absolutely, positively signed that one. There's no debate. But all the other pardons, all the other documents, all the other things that were handled through the years, these are important investigations. Again, I don't like going back that much, but this is really important. If these people had a cabal, had some chief of staff leading the way with a group of lieutenants deciding all the policy for America and making decisions as if they were president and then telling the president, this is what I think they did. I think they told Biden everything. I think they just said, here's what we're doing. We got this for you, okay? This is what we're going to do, okay? And he's like, sure, okay, whatever. That's what Joe Biden struck me as sure, fine, go for it. And their out will be, hey, we ran it by the president. Yes, we ran the auto pen. Yes, we did all these things. I think they probably did tell him, and I don't think Biden remembers half of it. And there might have been where, they were well chronicled that he had really bad days where he just wasn't with it. Well, did the government just stop on those days? No. These people had the auto pen. They kept going with all the executive orders, all the pardons, all of the documents, all of these things that were done to us without a real president. I think the investigation is something that's very necessary. And we have learned from one of his top aides, Neera Tanden, that yes, indeed, for almost 2 years, she had authority to go use the auto pen as she saw fit. That needs to be written into law as against the law. The president should be signing all of these things. All right, we're going to give away some tickets. Stick around. Country Stampede is coming up, and Uncanceled continues next.
It's Kevin Kietzman, Uncanceled, on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Seventh caller right now wins tickets to Country Stampede. It's a 4-pack for the 3-night festival that starts tomorrow night. 913-408-7957. Hit us right now. Seventh caller will be our lucky winner. We're giving away at 35 every hour. So keep listening all day long for the clues and times to call in and win your tickets to Country Stampede. Nobody's giving away tickets to Country Stampede like KCMO Talk Radio. So go get them. So I saw some great reporting by Tony Bateo over at Tony's Kansas City over the last couple of days, considering the World Cup. And so I started diving a little bit deeper into all of this because the World Cup is coming, and we're told that this is going to be the greatest thing that Kansas City's ever had. And we've been told by the Kansas City Star that what people think of Kansas City forever, ever, and ever, our reputation, will hinge upon the World Cup matches are here. My counter to that argument is I've watched the World Cup, and when I watch the World Cup, I never know which city that stadium's in. Never. It doesn't say anywhere. It doesn't say on the corner. There's no little score bug up in the corner that says Kansas City. If you know Arrowhead, you know Arrowhead. But when this thing was in Qatar and they had multiple stadiums, or any other country with multiple stadiums, you never know which city these matches are in. You don't, unless you just follow the thing really closely and know where all the teams are and have it by heart. No, Kansas City's reputation does not hinge on what we do at the World Cup. It is yet another lie that I don't know why, like, soccer people are funny to me. They know that there's people that don't really like soccer very much, and they want to change that in a very almost cult-like way. Like, they want to convince you the whole world knows this is the greatest game, you stupid idiot. Why do you think American football is better than soccer? You need to love soccer. Why can't people just be comfortable that they love something, and if other people don't, that's okay? But they refuse to do that here in Kansas City. You know, they push this, we're the soccer capital of America thing on us. We have basically laughed at the Sports Commission and World Cup KC that they think 600,000 people are going to visit next June the Kansas City area. We can't handle that. We can't handle that. We can't handle that. There's not nearly enough places to stay. They're going to stay at my house and your house. Like, there's no room for 600,000 people here. And Tony Bateo points out at Tony's Kansas City that this number is now provably false and an outrageous lie by the people in Kansas City, because Los Angeles is hosting more matches than we are. They're a much bigger city, and they say they're going to have 180,000 visitors, not 600,000. See, that's a little different. If Kansas City was saying 190,000 visitors and LA was saying 180, okay, we're splitting hairs. LA's going to, you're telling me somebody lives in Brazil, they're going to go to the World Cup, they're going, should I go to Kansas City or Los Angeles? What a difficult choice for somebody doing international traveling. And I'm not talking about somebody who's going to travel to see their team. You're going to get those people, but that's not going to be 600,000 fans in Kansas City to see their team. Los Angeles says they're going to get 180,000, but we're going to get 600,000. This is what they do in this town. This is what they do, and it's obnoxious. It doesn't really bother me, but we need to know these things. When you're hearing all this, and then what's ridiculous to me, and I always say this frequently, I appreciate all of the local media for listening to KCMO Talk Radio, because you get insight into what you people are doing from myself, Pete, John, Mark, people that really know and understand media and understand your games and your tricks. The fact that, like, TV stations, newspapers, whatever alike, just lap this information up like it's gospel from the people in Kansas City is just hilarious to me. In addition to that, Los Angeles reports that they will have $590 million worth of economic impact in Los Angeles, where everything costs double. Like everything. Gas is $6 a gallon. Like everything in California is taxed and costs more. We would all agree with that. If you're going to spend $100 in Kansas City on the World Cup by visiting here, that's just a round number, you're going to spend at least $150 or maybe $200 in Los Angeles. We'll all agree with that, right? So their economic impact's $590 million. In Kansas City, they say it's going to be much higher than that, $655 million worth of impact here. So I don't know how our World Cup is going to be bigger than Los Angeles, but it sounds like we're putting LA to shame. Way to go, Kansas City. Maybe it's because the state of Missouri kicked in $74 million for this thing. Kansas kicked in $28 million, and they're not hosting matches. $28 million from Kansas. How do you feel? How do you think some dude who farms for a living, a cattle rancher in Waukene, Kansas, feels about the state of Kansas spending $28 million on the World Cup to be at Arrowhead? You think Kansans are feeling pretty good about that? How about if you live in Kansas City, Missouri, and you don't like your trash pickup, your potholes, you got complaints with all this other stuff? They're going to kick in $15 million. Johnson County's donating all their buses and paying for staff to operate those buses. They're going to wrap them in cool World Cup things to make it look like they're not Johnson County buses, that they're World Cup buses. And they're throwing in $1.5 million just for goodwill. I don't know what Johnson County role is in the World Cup. I don't know how they're affected. Like, at least Wyandotte County has a practice facility where some of these teams are going to practice. And Overland Park, because it's overflowing with cash, just said, we don't really know where it goes, but here's $275,000 to the World Cup KC. Like, everybody's throwing money into this thing because it's going to be the greatest thing ever. Well, if they're throwing money in like that, it's clearly because the money is going, the money might as well be enriched uranium in Iran. It is so far down, buried in the ground, and underwater at this point. This is the dumbest money you could ever spend. And remember, the reason Kansas City got this is we promised all this to FIFA, and other cities, incredibly, weren't as stupid as Kansas City and said, no, that's a bad investment. We're not spending money on this thing. We're not doing it. That's why we have it. We didn't have it because we're the coolest city. We had it because we were willing to overpay for it. And our governments are spending your tax dollars without a vote on bringing, imagine if there was like a 5-county or a bi-state ballot initiative, and they put it on last November and said, what do you think about spending a couple $100 million to bring the World Cup to Kansas City? Yes or no? What do you figure that vote would have gone down in flames like? That would have been the ugliest vote you ever saw. One giant hell no. But these people find money and they spend it like crazy, and then they tell us what it's going to do. And I'm all for economic activity, and there are payoffs and things. I'd much rather spend it on an entity like the Royals or Chiefs. Not my favorite thing to do, but it's the reality of having major league teams. When you know they're part of your community, you know that there's a tangible quality of life benefit to having them be in your city for decades and generations. There's a tangible quality of life element to the Chiefs and Royals that does not exist with the World Cup. It's fun for a couple of weeks for some people, but it doesn't really change the quality of life in Kansas City, and I don't understand why they try to oversell these things to us. No overselling this one. Olathe has the safest drivers in Kansas City. Olathe is very close to having the safest drivers in America. Nearly 12 and a half years between accident claims for the average driver in Olathe, Kansas. This is an insurance company study and a survey of the top 100 safest driving cities in America. And Olathe is number 6 in America. Overland Park is number 15. Kansas City, Kansas is number 44. Kansas City, Missouri is not in the top 100. I kind of checks out. I KCK 44. That's pretty good. That's a lot of people in some congested areas, and that's pretty darn good. But Olathe has the safest drivers in our area, and the 6th safest drivers in America are in Olathe, Kansas. Way to go. You may recall Tyreek Hill was a football player for the Kansas City Chiefs, and a really good one. And they traded him where he was going to make more than $40 million more by going to a different team that the Chiefs didn't want to pay him. He's made a lot of money and lost a lot of games in Miami, which I predicted on my podcast he would never win another playoff game after he left, and that's proving to be true. He's going through a nasty divorce in Florida with Keita, his 29-year-old soon-to-be ex-wife, Keita Hill. And he says he doesn't want to pay any alimony, any support to her. This is a guy with at least $50 million at this point, net worth, maybe more. That's after taxes and everything else. He doesn't want to pay her anything and cites in the complaint to the state that she is, quote, voluntarily unemployed, unquote. That she's educated, she has the ability to work, and she refuses to work. And he shouldn't have to pay for that she needs to get a job. Then he writes in his complaint that Keita, quote, has a history of stealing money, unquote. To which her lawyers responded, and everybody knows this. I'm a little worried about Tyreek Hill's lawyers here. The response was, all income in the state of Florida is marital. You were married to her. Everything you made, she's entitled to spend. You married her. That's the law. Your money is her money. And he called it stealing that she stole from him because she had access to the bank account and bought all kinds of crazy stuff that he didn't like. That's called marriage, Tyreek. That's the way it works. And it's not gender specific. There's plenty of women out there that make more than their husbands. I've got a relative who she's got a wonderful career. And they were so concerned about raising their children that dad stayed home with them and didn't work. There's a lot of that in America, and we've got great respect for that. So this isn't really gender specific, but here's the deal. You're the breadwinner. She gets to spend it. She gets to eat the bread too. That's the way it works. This is one of the most ridiculous tit-for-tat things. The lawyers are just getting rich off these folks. Give her some money. What does she want, Tyreek? Make it go away. Please stay out of the news for us. Somehow, some way, please stay out of the news. We would all greatly appreciate that. All right, this story is this is as bad as it gets. We've talked about these fake racism claims at sporting events where athletes say, oh, they were hollering racist slurs at me, but then nobody can find the person that did it and say, if somebody says something bad or insensitive, everybody hears it. All of the people around them know exactly who said it. It's easy to identify, and the people are easy to kick out. This happened last night in Chicago at the White Sox game, playing the Arizona Diamondbacks, where one of the most unspeakable, unthinkable, awful things was hollered from the stands to a star player for the Diamondbacks named Ketel Marte. He's a really good player. And a fan was heckling him at the plate, in the on-deck circle, and at the plate about his mom, who died in a car crash in 2017. Marte walked off the field, was in the dugout in tears from this fan. Torey Lovullo, the manager for the Diamondbacks, went and saw the umpire and said, I want that fan ejected. They ejected that fan. That's about as low as it gets. And it proves once again that not everybody is a good person. That's just a horrific thing. This has been years ago, but it reduced him to tears. Whatever, I don't know the exact words of what the fan said. It doesn't really matter. That's just awful. Whose life is so empty that you go to a ball game and that's what you do? That person needs real help. And we have sympathies for Ketel Marte of the Arizona Diamondbacks for that happening. But it proves once again, if somebody claims they heard a racist remark, the fans around them know and they get kicked out. This person was easy to identify. Everyone around heard it, and that was that. Coming up, we've got a big congratulations from Mark Van Sickle. That is next on Uncanceled, brought to you by bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind. If you need cash now, Best Offer KC can help you move forward fast. Folks, this is simple. If you or somebody you know needs to sell a house fast without a realtor, okay, and they got to get moving, whatever their next stage of their life is, Best Offer KC is the best advice you can give to a friend or a loved one. Tell the folks you know, if they got to move fast, Best Offer KC is probably the right fit. If they're not the right fit, no big deal. You're still going to walk away knowing your options because they'll consult with you in advance, and you may learn something you didn't know, and it may not be for you. But if selling your house fast is what's important to you or a loved one, bestofferkc.com is absolutely the way to go. Call 338-SOLD. That's 338-SOLD for bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind.
Kevin Kietzman is Uncanceled and back on Kansas City Radio. 10 to 11 a.m. on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
A giant congratulations to our very own Mark Van Sickle for KCMO's College Pick'em podcast. It has been the best of. Mark, fill us in on what's going on with the podcast.
Yeah, according to $1 Million Podcasts, I'm not sure what that is, but, nice of them to put the top 60 list together, and I made the top 40.
That's awesome.
So I wasn't expecting that. Just got an email this morning, and I'll gladly accept.
That's really cool. And you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts, KCMO's College Pick'em podcast. How often do you do it, and do you track all of your picks?
Yes, I do. So it's a football-based podcast.
Right.
And so that will start in August. I usually do a week 0 one to get things kicked off, and I'll pick some of the biggest games of the week, most of the Big 12 games, keep it a little bit local as well, and I'll keep track of them. Last year, I don't have it pulled up right now, but I did keep track of all of them, and we had a winning record last year, so that's the biggest thing.
That's fantastic. Week 0, you just got my goosebumps going. Week 0 is K-State, Iowa State.
It's coming up.
Like, it could be for the Big 12 title, the first game of the year.
That's true. Both
in Ireland. I mean, although I don't know. Iowa State returns their quarterback, but not much else, so they got to rebuild in a lot of areas, but that's just a hugely important game right out of the chute. So we will look forward to your first podcast coming up in August in Strictly College, right?
Yes, that one's Strictly College. I do have the Sunday Sharps, which is NFL as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, how about this one? The Colorado Rockies are 18-60. The Royals lost last night, as John has reported this morning. That's 8 in a row they've lost at home. The Royals are 38-40. So how is one team 18-60 and the other's 38-40 when the Colorado Rockies have scored more runs this year than the Royals?
I guess that's showing how good the Royals' pitching has been so far.
Wow. The Rockies have scored 276 runs. The Royals have scored 262. It was painful to watch again last night.
Yeah, the Royals need to score runs if they're going to win.
What do you think is going on in their home stadium? It is so spacious. They get on the road and they hit home runs and they score, and then they get home. Or do they just get some mental block like I got to swing harder tonight to get the ball over the fence? What's going on with this team?
It doesn't make sense because sometimes they get guys on base, they just can't get them around. So it must be a mental thing.
Bobby Witt had a strikeout early last night. It was one of the worst at-bats I've ever seen him have. He got down 0-2, and then he swung at a pitch high and away that wasn't even close to the zone and hung his head walking back to the dugout. And he's having a fine year. He's not having the year he had last year. Bobby Witt is not this team's problem. I'm not insinuating that he is. But, man, I've seen him take some ugly at-bats this year that I don't recall from last year. It seems like it's an epidemic on this team.
Yeah, it's something that the whole team just has to get over. And, they add Jack Caglione. He hasn't been exactly what everybody hoped. But, it's Salvi's not swinging like he was last year. It's kind of everybody.
I think if this homestand goes poorly, and it's looking like it might, because the Dodgers are coming to town and they're really good, I think the Royals become sellers.
I could definitely see that.
They start building toward next year and maybe move Seth Lugo and try to bring in some bats for the future. Randy Mahomes is swinging for the fences. She was on a podcast, and she just flat, she's all Trump train, like before anybody. She's been for years. You go back on her social media, Trump train, MAGA, all MAGA. She just threw down that girls play girl sports, boys play boys sports, and she started talking about her own experience as an athlete and her own children, and really lamented, why is this even a debate? She gets asked about it. She's going to give a comment. I'm proud of her, but it's nothing outrageous. They're making it sound like this is big news that Randy Mahomes is speaking out on this. Like 90% of the American people agree on this thing.
It's kind of common sense.
It's just common sense. We don't allow boys to play in the girls' league. We spent so much time working toward equality for women in this country. For all the years that they couldn't vote, they didn't have opportunities to play sports. And we get the equality. We get it there. And we have this, blossoming culture of girls that want to play in sports. And they can still be ladies if they want. They can still go home and play with a Barbie after they play soccer, whatever you want to be. And now we're just going to trample on that with transgender players. It's just beyond me. But way to go, Randy Mahomes. We are fans. She might be the most sane person in that family. And how about this? The Minnesota Timberwolves, we reported last week the Los Angeles Lakers were selling valued at $10 billion. The Minnesota Timberwolves are finally closed on their sale of $1.5 billion. This took 51 months to conclude over 4 years. That means this thing started during COVID. Wouldn't you pull the offer if you were selling the team?
Yeah, try to get somebody better in there.
They're going to buy a team for $1.5 billion, and instantly it's probably worth $3 billion or $4 billion. The Lakers have set a higher standard for all these NBA teams.
Mm-hmm.
That thing literally sat there and became a better investment for the owners. Now, it was contractual disputes. They had this problem, and they had to get permission by the NBA and all these other things. If I'm the seller, I'm going back and saying, no. That $1.5 billion we agreed to 4.5 years ago is off the table. I'm going to need $3 billion for my team now. Man, Donald Trump would never, ever sell low like that. Never, ever, ever. That is Uncanceled. The Vince Show is coming up next. Thanks for listening on KCMO Talk Radio.